Good morning, everyone. There's Sharon, there's Chris, Alina. Good morning, team. Welcome to another Wealth Coffee Chat, 28th of September. The year's getting away on us, folks. The year's getting away on us, that's for sure. Hopefully you're all well wherever you are. Hopefully you're staying out of trouble. Sometimes that's a bit boring, but I've found over the years too much trouble can cause a little bit of heartache, but there you go. Anyway, hey, morning, James and Aaron and DJ and Alison. Morning, Shay, my love. Hey, thanks, Alison. Yeah, mate, your enthusiasm is infectious. So thanks for being around and always keeping the vibe on the positive, which is awesome, mate. So great to see all of you guys here today. Yeah, let's have a bit of a wealth coffee chat. For those who might be new, hey, there's good morning. There's Fiona. Morning, Fiona. Good to see you. Anyone who's new, say hello. Give us a shout out in the chat. Tell us the big new in there. Tell us where you're dialing in from, wherever you are in this fabulous planet. The one, the only planet we have. Where are you dialing in from? Amy, good morning. And there's Simon as well. Good to see you guys jumping on for a bit of a listen this morning. If you're new, like I said before, Jason Witten's my name. I've been property investing over 20 years and coaching property investors over 18 years. Morning, Bob. Hey, there's LJ, all the way from Townsville. LJ, I grew up in Charters Towers, just around the corner. There you go. Good spot. Bit hot for my liking. I don't know. I grew up there for 17 years and got down to home when I could, but it was a little bit too sweaty for me. But we've got Fiona out in sunny Sydney, Illawarra. Amy, that's good to see. Good to see a few people dialing in from wherever you are. Stay safe, stay well. Keep yourself and your family taken care of. Hey, listen, this morning I want to talk to you about wealth zones. Zones of wealth. Michelle's all the way from Sydney. Great to see, Michelle. Zones of wealth. The idea that, certain locations can yield better value than other locations for certain reasons. And Sam talks about a number of zones. If you guys I've heard Sam talk about his zones, the zones of wealth, when it comes to Sam and his presentations. Chuck it in the chat if you know what those zones are, because one of them today I'm going to talk about, but there's a couple of different versions of zones when it comes to real estate wealth. And there's two broad categories of zones when it comes to where our properties are located, and the way we should look at owning this real estate and understanding how to manipulate it, all right? So let's have a bit of a look at that. So if you are sitting there at home and thinking, what's he talking about, then stay tuned because I'll fill you in on what I'm talking about in a moment. But if you're there, maybe you've heard Sam talk about this before, but there's two major parts in the zone conversation I'm going to talk about today. Two big zones, okay? Number one, one that is important is the livability zones, right? Now, those livability zones, we're going to talk about those in a second, and these are the ones that Sam has come up with, and others, of course, zones where locations, real estate is located that has some extra reasons for property prices to go up, okay? And it's all about the livability of that zone. And the other zone or types of zone impact we can have with our wealth is, let's talk about this, development zones, okay? Number one, this one here, for some reason my little highlighter's not working. So this zone here, the livability zone, is all about what is in the location or close proximity to that location for us to want to live there. And development zone is about what can you do with that piece of real estate into the future, what's called highest and best use. All right, so that's laying the foundation for our conversation this morning. So let's dive into it, team. But check this out. Little newspaper article just recently talking about a school zone. A school zone, and that school zone here, the marketplace is rewarding the owners of people who own in this school zone, which means it's a catchment area where you can send your children to a good school. According to these stats, and sometimes you've got to double check these, that's for sure. But, for today's purposes of the conversation, it's as accurate as we need that these locations, these properties, these areas, school zones where you can send your kids to school have grown significantly in comparison to the surrounding market. Other areas that don't have the school zone location, the school attendance location, haven't grown as much. So if we think about this as we build our portfolio team, you think about what types of zones we could own real estate in. And Sam is always looking at these zones to catapult our values forward. So number one, a school zone. If you don't have to spend, $5, $10, $15, $20,000 a year to send your children to a private school or a selective school, a selective public school, etc., you can live in that area, then there'll be a compensation or a change in the value of that area because that will be attractive, a school zone. Tell me in the chat, team, what other zones, livability zones, living zones, do people covet and desire when it comes to having a better lifestyle? Chuck one in the chat for me if you guys know while I have a little sip of my coffee, because it's always good to get you guys maybe thinking and get involved in this little bit of a chat. Now, Sharon's on it. Yes, there we go. Boom. There you go. Awesome. Nice one, gang. All right, there's green zones. Totally. There's sand zones or beach zones, beach sort of water zones. The medical zones are absolutely golden. And we certainly do have some employment zones / locations as well. The sea tree change, that's sort of, often taken care of, Amanda, in the green zones, like, people wanting to move to, bigger blocks of land, et cetera, and Chris nailed the other one. This sort of knowledge zone. Knowledge, and it's kind of an extension, sort of unis and universities and tapes and education places over and above the school zone, okay? So when we have a look at our properties and our locations of where we own these bits of real estate, you can see uni before Corona. I think we'll have universities in that way afterwards as well, Bob. But it'd be interesting. You think about that right now. You go, okay, what would it look like? What are the universities of the future look like? What do those locations look like? It's really something really interesting to pontificate. So think about that. School zone, green zone, where there's lots of access to either, parks, the bush, on the fringes of cities with really nice lifestyle blocks, etc. We know this one, the sand zone, the ocean. The closer you can get to the ocean, the more money you put in your pocket. That it's been a bit of a it's been a bit of a staple for a long time. But when we look at these areas as well, if we put in these zones, plus we put in well-designed, functional real estate, it layers on top and on top and on top. The value becomes exponential. Medical zones, employment, knowledge in uni, etc. So you guys see this as you go. You're dead right, Alison. Because I've said this one for a while. There's been a few people moving to regional locations. Not as many as you think, folks. The majority of Australians internally, from a moving point of view, leaving the big cities, Sydney and Melbourne predominantly, have moved to southeast Queensland. Okay? And a small amount have moved to regional cities. Now, those regional cities, even 1,000 people moving into a regional city or 500 overwhelms those cities from a supply point of view because no one's building stuff there. And, prices in the short term are affected, and so too are rents. But you've got to remember this, folks, if you think about those regional locations, the economics of those regional locations, what is the normal when this thing blows over and everyone has to have a local job. Does the local job sustain that rent or those property prices? And 9 times out of 10, the answer is no. So don't get too caught up in short-term, get rich quick. I've got to buy something in a regional location because it's going up in value. I think that's short-term as far as I'm concerned. If it's something you're going to own forever, buy well, never sell, good location, there might be a reason for it. E.g., 10 acres, 1 hour from the city, it's going ballistic. I own a pretty cool little plot of land down Byron Way, and it's crushed it. So, yeah, there you go. So, listen, folks, what's the other zone we talked about? We talked about a development zone. A development zone, something that is able to be densified. I don't even know if that's a real word. Higher density into the future from where it is today. Okay, and I pulled up a little map of Melbourne right here, and I'll zoom in for you guys. Hopefully, we can see this together. But if you look at this, when we take a look at the councils and the governments, either the local councils, the state governments, and the national governments, they're talking about how do we keep the population in our cities. That's the plan. The government does not want dispersal, continuous urban sprawl out to the nowheresville, into the middle of nowhere. So they go ahead and have a look at potential development processes, right? Greenfield, large infill, dispersed infill, greyfield, and urban boundary growth. And every city, folks, every state has a plan when it comes to these things. So this is one thing that I've done over the years, certainly when we look at, potentially our joint ventures and developments. When you have a look at these here, team, if you have a look at large-scale brownfield, greenfield, dispersed infill, greyfield, and urban boundary growth, tell me in the chat, what do you guys think would be the most desirable development style for us as property investors in here? Have a look at which one of those ones do you think, and maybe just take a guess, or some of you would know. Tell me, what do you guys think here? Do you think we should invest in large-scale brownfield sites on the edge of nowhere? Greenfield sites, which are a bit better planned, but they're still on the edge? Dispersed infill, which I think there might be a bit of a answer in that one. Greyfield or urban growth, right out in the boundary. What do you guys think? Whack that in the chat for me when you think, all right, well, where would I put my money? Where's the pressure? Where is the infrastructure? Where is the stuff already? And what we're looking at, let's have a bit of a look at that. And yes, Chris, that is the one certainly I think is worth having a look at. And if you think about this team, these things called dispersed infill, but infill sites, now this map's a bit blurry, so apologies. Infill sites in Melbourne, these are areas where the council have identified they want to densify and put more dwellings in these sites, right? So, little site there and a little site here and so on, what does that look like? And, this is about 4 or 5 years old now, this map. So think about that when it comes to those things. And yes, absolutely, Alison, if we look at the CBD, where am I? I've got my right orientation here. If we look at sort of CBD rings, if we said, all right, well, if we have a dispersed infill site within, that, 5 kilometre ring of Melbourne or the 10 kilometre ring of Melbourne, that's going to be super attractive. You know what I mean? And then you've got your other things like, certain transport hubs and education hubs and so on when we have a look at this. So it's just an idea, just an insight, team, of the sort of the due diligence, the understanding of the economics and the pressures that build underneath your property portfolio when you have a look at it. But, tell me, folks, and this is what I always say, all right, you can purchase in here, or, let's go all the way out to here and buy something, all right? So this is sometimes when we talk about, a lot of people talk about houses versus apartments. And it's actually not houses versus apartments. That's a stupid way to look at things. It's just the location of the economic support of the dwelling. That's what it is, right? So over here, what is the dollars and cents, the economics of that location compared to this, the economics of this location. And the economics will drive the value, okay? And you have to make a decision as an investor which one of those locations and pieces of real estate are going to gather the most value, the most attraction from a rent point of view. So if you think about this, imagine you had an infill site driven by a school zone or a medical zone or a knowledge zone. Can you see how those things can, double and triple the pressure on the value as you find these locations as a property investor? So, team, hopefully that makes sense when it comes to the zones of wealth. There's a number of ways to look at it, and they can compound if you stack them on top of each other for your properties and your values, and those things can be quite valuable. That's what Sam and the acquisition team, the buyers agency team does at Positive. They are always searching and stacking value on value on value on value when it comes to the properties that they source out for our members and you guys in the mentoring program. But anyway, there you go. Wealth Coffee Chat done. Hopefully we learnt something together this morning. Anyway, you guys stay well wherever you are. As always, remember, this thing's a marathon, not a sprint. Folks, it's about going the distance. And my number one rule, buy well, never sell. That's the way we roll around here. You guys stay safe and take care until we chat again, maybe tomorrow, around about 8:05. Take care. Bye for now.